Dylan grabbed the ladder, testing it. It creaked dangerously, but held. He climbed fast, ignoring the pain tearing through his side. Pulling himself onto a broken ledge, he reached down. "Give me your hand!" The boy jumped, barely catching him. Dylan pulled with everything he had, dragging him up just as the attackers entered the alley below. "Up there!" But it was too late. Dylan grabbed the boy and ran across the rooftop, the structure groaning under their weight, pieces breaking off and falling into the darkness below. "Faster!" They reached a gap, too wide, no choice. "Jump!" They jumped, barely making it. The boy slipping on landing, but Dylan catching him again, pulling him up. Behind them, one attacker jumped and missed, disappearing into the darkness. But the others kept coming, relentless. Dylan reached the edge of the roof and stopped. Nowhere left to run. He turned slowly, breathing heavy. 3 attackers closing in, weapons ready, eyes locked on him. No escape, again. Dylan tightened his grip on the crowbar, his breathing slowing, focusing, controlling the fear. "Stay behind me," he said. The first attacker rushed forward, and Dylan stepped into the fight as the crowbar swung and everything exploded into motion once again. The crowbar strike came first, fast and brutal, smashing into the attacker's arm just as he lunged forward, the weapon flying from his hand as he screamed. But there was no pause, no time to breathe. The second attacker was already there, knife cutting through the air. Dylan stepped back, barely avoiding the blade, his heart pounding, his vision narrowing, everything slowing down for a split second as instinct took over. He shifted his weight and swung again, the crowbar connecting with the man's shoulder, the sound echoing across the rooftop, the attacker dropping to one knee. But the third one didn't hesitate. He rushed in from the side, faster, angrier, slamming into Dylan and sending both of them crashing to the ground. The air knocked out of his lungs as pain exploded through his ribs. The knife flashing again, coming down toward him. Dylan grabbed the attacker's wrist with both hands, holding it back inches from his face, his muscles shaking, his strength fading, every second slipping, the blade getting closer, closer, his arms trembling. And then suddenly, the weight shifted. The boy screamed and tackled the attacker from the side, throwing him off balance just enough. Dylan twisted hard, forcing the knife away, then drove his knee into the attacker's stomach, rolling free and grabbing the crowbar again. He didn't hesitate. One strike, then another, until the attacker stopped moving, breathing heavy, shaking, his vision blurring for a second before snapping back. But it wasn't over, never over. Footsteps again, more voices rising from below. "They're still up there!" The rooftop was no longer an escape, it was a trap. Dylan grabbed the boy and pulled him back, scanning quickly, always thinking, always moving. There was only one way, another building across a wider gap, too far, too dangerous, but staying meant death. "We jump or we die," Dylan said. The boy hesitated, fear freezing him. "That's too far." "Trust me." Dylan didn't wait for an answer. He stepped back, took a breath, then ran forward and jumped, the world dropping beneath him as he flew through the air, the gap stretching endlessly for a split second before his hands slammed into the edge of the other roof, his body hitting hard, pain shooting through his arms, but he held on, pulling himself up with everything he had left. He turned instantly, reaching back. "Jump!" The boy ran, jumped, barely catching the edge, slipping. "I'm slipping!" Dylan grabbed his arm, pulling hard, his muscles screaming. The attackers appearing on the other side just as he dragged the boy up. One of them jumped and almost made it, his fingers catching the edge. Dylan didn't hesitate. He raised the crowbar and slammed it down on the man's hands. The grip broke, the attacker falling into the darkness with a fading scream. Silence hit for just a second, broken only by their breathing. But then distant voices again, more movement, more danger, always more. Dylan stood slowly, his body shaking, blood running down his side, his hands trembling. The boy looked at him, eyes wide. "We can't keep doing this." Dylan looked out over the burning city, flames reflecting in his eyes, the endless ruins stretching in every direction. No safety, no end, just survival. "We don't have a choice," he said. But deep inside he knew something had to change. Running wasn't enough anymore. Hiding wasn't enough. They would keep coming again and again until there was nowhere left to run. And for the first time since everything began, Dylan wasn't just thinking about surviving the next minute. He was thinking about ending it. Ending the chase. Ending them. Because if he didn't, this would never stop. And as another distant scream echoed through the night, he tightened his grip on the crowbar, his gaze becoming colder, sharper, more dangerous than before. Because now he wasn't just running anymore. Now he was ready to fight back. The night felt different now, heavier, as if the city itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to end. Dylan stood at the edge of the rooftop, his grip tightening around the crowbar, his breathing slow but deep, controlled, his body exhausted, bleeding, barely holding together, but his eyes were no longer running. They were searching, calculating, hunting. The boy stood behind him, shaking, looking at the endless burning ruins. What do we do now? Dylan didn't answer immediately, his gaze fixed on the movement below, shadows shifting between the broken streets, more of them gathering, more footsteps, more voices. Spread out! He's here somewhere! They weren't giving up. They never would. And in that moment, Dylan understood something clearly. This wouldn't stop unless he stopped it, unless he faced them, ended it, here, now. He turned slightly. Stay here, no matter what happens. The boy's eyes widened. No, don't go. We can just run. There's nowhere left to run, Dylan said. And before the boy could say anything else, he moved, dropping down from the rooftop onto a lower level, landing hard, pain shooting through his legs. But he kept moving, stepping out into the open street, the firelight revealing him instantly. Silence fell for a split second. Then, there! Footsteps rushed toward him from all directions, shadows turning into figures, weapons ready, eyes locked on him. Dylan didn't move back, didn't hesitate. He stepped forward instead. The first attacker charged, screaming, knife raised. Dylan swung the crowbar with full force. The man dropped instantly, but the others kept coming. One from the left, one from the right, another from behind. Too many, always too many. Dylan moved like instinct itself, turning, striking, blocking, the crowbar smashing into arms, shoulders, heads, every hit heavy, every movement precise, but they kept closing in. One attacker managed to grab him from behind, locking his arms. Another stepped forward with a knife, smiling. It's over. The blade rose. Dylan struggled, his muscles screaming, his strength fading, everything slowing down again. The firelight flickering in his eyes, the sound of his own heartbeat filling his head. And then, "Hey!" The boy's voice cut through everything, a distraction, just for a second, but it was enough. Dylan drove his head backward into the attacker behind him, breaking the grip, twisted sharply, grabbing the wrist of the man with the knife, forcing it aside, then slammed the crowbar into his face, breaking through the moment, breaking through the circle. But more were still coming, surrounding him again, pushing him back step by step, his breathing getting heavier, his vision blurring, his body reaching its limit. One Adar slipped past his guard, hitting his side. Another knocked him to one knee, the crowbar almost falling from his hand. He forced himself up again, refusing to fall, refusing to stop, because this was it. There was no next chance, no next escape, only this moment. Only this fight. He roared and surged forward with everything he had left, swinging wildly but powerfully, breaking through one attacker, then another, creating space, just enough space, and then he saw it. A weak point, a gap between them. He ran, pushing through, taking hits, ignoring pain, forcing his way out, breaking free from the attackers shouting behind him, chasing again, but slower now, injured, scattered. Dylan ran toward the base of a broken structure, grabbing onto the metal frame and climbing despite the pain, pulling himself higher, higher, until he reached a narrow ledge above the street. He turned, breathing heavily, looking down at them. They were still there, still watching, still hunting, but not close enough now, not fast enough. For the first time, there was distance, real distance. The boy climbed up beside him, collapsing to the ground. We made it. Dylan didn't answer right away. He looked out over the city, the fires still burning, the screams still echoing somewhere far away, the chaos not gone, just farther, always there, always waiting. "No, we survived," he said, and there was a difference, a big difference. Because surviving meant something else now. It meant adapting, enduring, becoming something stronger than the world that tried to break you. He looked down at his hands, covered in blood, shaking but steady enough, then back at the horizon, his eyes colder, wiser, harder than before. Because he knew this wasn't the end. Not really. But it was a beginning, a moment where he stopped running and started fighting to live. And as the first light of dawn slowly broke through the smoke-filled sky, casting a faint glow over the ruins, Dylan stood there in silence, still breathing, still alive. And in this broken world, that was the only victory that mattered.